Okay, guess what? I found out I made a mistake on the last video. I skipped a page. And so I thought this would be a great way to start the new video by reviewing a couple problems from the last video. So if you go to Module 2, Lesson 3, Student Page B, Page 1, I skipped right over it. Skipped to Page 2. So we'll start with this and then go back to Student Page C where this video actually begins. So, and this is good. It's good practice because students usually struggle with completely simplifying fractions. So this will give us some more practice. So shade the value 0.65 or 65 hundredths in the grid below. So we have tenths, hundredths. So we know this is 65 over 100, which tells us what to shade. So we need to shade 65 of the 100 boxes. So we get out our handy dandy highlighters again. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there we go. 65 out of 100 are now shaded. And they want us to state 0.65 in words. And as I stated in the last video, it's much easier to write it as a fraction and state how you would read the fraction because the decimals are stated the same way. So this is read 65 hundredths and not 100ths. I hear a lot of students see a lot of students write that. It's just 65 and then the word hundredths to describe the place value, tenths, hundredths. So 65 is in between 21 and 99, therefore it needs a hyphen, and then we spell the word hundred with a THS. So 65 hundredths. Express the value 0.65 as a fraction with a denominator of 100. We already did that above. So 2 decimal places goes over 100. Then we simplify. So just like on the last problems that we did on the last video, this ends in 5 and 0, which tells me that 5 will go into both of these. Because 5 goes into any number that ends in 5 and 0. And remember, it always has to be the same number. So then we divide 5 into 65. 5 goes into 6 once. 1 times 5 is 5. Draw the line, change the sign, and we get 6 minus 5, which is 1, and then bring down the last number, 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15. So that tells me it's 13 over, and then we can do that little shortcut again. 10 divided by 5, 5 goes into 10 2 times. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then add in the 0 that I've covered up. So that would be 20. 13 is prime, so I can tell that I have it completely simplified since 13 doesn't go into 20, and it is prime. So there is our simplified value of what's shaded. So why don't you guys try the next one? Turn off the video momentarily, do the next one, and then come back and join me. So on this one we have 0.8, which is read 8 tenths, 1 decimal place, tenths. And that means shade 8 out of 10 of the strips. So shade 8 of 10 of the strips. So we have all of them but the last 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So there is 8 tenths or 8 out of 10 of the strips shaded. So in words, it is simply 8 tenths, just like you would read it here. So 8, spell the word 10, and then add a THS. Denominator a 10, we already did, 8 tenths. Those are both even. We learned in our last video, whenever they're both even, you start by dividing by 2. And so that gives me 8 divided by 2 is 4, 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 and 5 have no factors in common except 1. Nothing goes into both of them. Therefore, 4/5 is simplified. Okay, so that's my mistake there. I forgot that page. So then we went ahead and we already did student page B, page 2, and we already did student page B, page 3. So that leaves us here ready to start adding and subtracting decimals on student page C. So sorry if that got you all confused with your notes. Obviously it must have got me confused too, because I just flipped over the page without doing it. Okay, so I'm going to show you one on here with the coloring, but it's really silly to color because it's so easy to add and subtract decimals. So I'm only just going to do this one just to show you, and then you can, after that, we'll just do the problem. So this is 37 hundredths, so that means shade 37, 10, 20, 30, and all but the last 3, 37 boxes. And then it says add that to 29 hundredths. So then we got a shade 29. So this would be 10, 20, and then we got 1, 2, 3 there, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now for the sum, we'd add them together because they're both positive. When the signs are the same, add and keep the sign, and we'll have our answer. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 66 out of 100, which means the decimal number would be 0.66. Okay, so that's the only one I'm going to do. Because like I said, decimal addition is very easy. I don't think you need a visual for it because we all know how to add. So to do it by hand, we put our zeros in that should be there in the first place, 0.37 plus, and the only requirement for addition and subtraction is that the decimals must be lined up. So then this is 0.29, making sure the decimals are lined up. Then the first thing we do is start from the back and start adding just like a regular addition problem. 9 and 7 is 16. Carry our 1. 3 and 2 is 5, plus 1 is 6. Decimal comes straight down. Bring down your 0, and voila! Matching answers. Ding, 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 ding. So we can tell, obviously, that we did get it correctly since we did the visual method and the actual adding algorithm. So then they have us answer a few questions. Is the sum less than or greater than a half? And I hope everybody knows a half is like 50%, right? So that'd be 0.50. So do you all see that 0.50 is smaller than this? Just remember how I said when we're comparing, we take off the decimals. What's larger, 50 or 66? 66. So our sum is greater than 1/2. And then they want to know, what is it closest to? Is it closest to 0? Is it closest to a half? Or is it closest to 1? So what we could do is we could do 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So 0.50, 0.60, 0.70, just to give you a visual on this, 0.80, 0.90, and then this would be 1 whole. So I hope everybody agrees that it's not closest to 0, because 0 is way, 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 way down here. So we need to decide 66 would be about right there, just a little over a half. Is it closer to 0? No. Is it closer to 50 or 1? So a half is 0.50, and we can see it is closer to 50 because it's only 16 units away from 50. It's, what, 34 units away from 1. So it is closest to 1/2. So that's what you want to do when you're doing that question. And then when I did this in class last semester, my students are like, well, can you kind of like give us an idea? Well, if it's less than 25, it's closest to 0. If it's between 25 and 50, it's closest to a half. If it's between 50 and 75, it's closest to a half. If it's above 0.75, then it's closest to 1. So I kind of just divide the number line into 4 equal pieces in my head. So I have 0, I have a fourth. Actually, a fourth isn't even one of the choices, is it? So we'll make this a half, 0.50, and then we have 1. So we just, and here's 0.25 just as a reference. If it's less than 0.25, then it's closest to 0. If it's between 0.25 and 50, it's closest to a half. If it's between 50 and 0.75, it's closest to a half. If it's greater than 0.75, then it'll be closest to 1. So that kind of gives us a thing to look at to answer these next questions. So this one we're just going to do straight out. So one thing you'll notice is when you're doing subtraction, you have to have the same number of decimal places. Remember when we were ranking and we said always make them the same number of decimal places? Same is true with subtraction, and I do for addition too. Anytime I add or subtract, I make them the same number. So I added a 0 there so that it would have 2, just like the second number. And then again, I just do regular subtraction. Only difference after I make them the same number of decimal places is I do have to remember to bring the decimal place straight down. So I have to borrow here. So 6, make it a 5. That will make this 10. So 10 minus 4 is 6. 5 minus 0 is 5. Decimal straight down, 0 minus 0 is 0. So that would be 0.56. And remember, 50 is a half. So because this is bigger than 0.50, this is going to be greater than a half. It's 56 units from 0. It's only 6 units from a half. And it's 44 units from 1. So this one is definitely closest to a half because it's barely bigger than a half. A half is 0.50. So it would be, if we were doing our number line right here. So you can see it's much closer to 50 than it is to 1. Okay, so everybody good with that one? Okay, next page. And it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to go. So we got plenty to practice on. Okay, let's do one more and then I'll let you guys do the next one because I think it's good if you keep practicing in between. So this is a regular addition, 0.08 and 0.49, making sure to add, line up your decimal places. And then I like to put the addition sign there just to remind me what I'm doing, because with subtraction and addition side by side, it's important to keep that straight. So 9 and 8 is 17. Carry our 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. Bring down the decimal. 0 plus 0 is 0. So we get 0.57. Again, this number is barely bigger than a half. 0.50 is a half, so it is greater than a half, but since it's barely bigger than a half, it's going to be closest to a half. Okay, your turn. Go ahead and shut off the video. Do your subtraction on number 4 and then join me to check your work. Okay, so we have 0.61 minus 0.19. Again, we're going to have to borrow, so make this 11 by borrowing 1 from the 6. 11 minus 9 is 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. So this will be 0.42. So 0.50 or 50 is a half. 42 smaller than 50, so this one is less than 1/2. But it's only 8 units from 50. So again, it's closer to 50 or half than it is to 0. It's 42 units away from 0. It's only 8 units away from a half. So again, this one is closer to a half. Okay. Hope you guys did okay on that one. Okay, I'm going to check both sides very carefully so I don't do the skipping thing again. So we're going to do the same thing. We can ignore the graph, just more of the same. So 0.36 plus 0.29. 9 and 6 is 15. Carry our 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. Straight down, 0. So 65 is greater than 50, because remember, think of this as 0.50, and then you can take the decimal off. 50%, 65%, 65 is greater, so greater than a half. And remember what I said about 1, it has to be over 0.75 or higher to be closest to 1, and this is not higher than 0.75. So that means, again, it's closest to a half. It's 50 to 65 is 15 units. 65 to 100 would be 35 units. So it's only 15 units away from a half. So it's closer to a half. Okay, let's do one more together, and then you guys can do the 2 on the next page. So 0.33 plus 0.08. Line up the decimal places whenever you're adding and subtracting. 11, carry our 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. Decimal straight down, 0.41. So this is smaller than 50, which means it's less than a half. But it's only 9 units away from 50, so it's still closest to a half. It's 41 units from 0. 9 units from 50, 59 units from 1, so it's closest to a half. Okay, next 2 are for you. They're our last 2 before we do our addition and subtraction. Just checking to make sure I got all the pages here. Now I'm paranoid. I looked at that and I went, how could I have skipped that? What was I thinking? Okay, so those 2 are yours. So go ahead and do the 2. I think they're both subtraction, right? Yep, do the 2 subtraction problems. Shut off your video and then come back when they're done and you can check your answers. And like I said in the last video, make sure you're doing this by hand. You do not get to use a calculator on the test or quiz. So you want to make sure that you have doing everything by hand. I guess this chapter doesn't have a quiz, it just has a test. And remember, our final is also no calculator, so you don't want to get attached to the calculator in Module 4 because you only get to use it for that one test and that's it. After that, you'll pretty much be able to use it forever in math, but we're just honing your basic skills right now, and you'll see that will make a big difference, like when you're in your algebra class trying to find factors of 24 that add to 11. Knowing your multiplication facts and how to add and subtract priceless. Okay, so let's check your work here. 0.57 minus 0.13. 7 minus 3, 4. 5 minus 1, 4. Bring down the decimal, 0 minus 0. Wow, these are all like almost the same answers. Who made this sheet anyway? Okay, so it's less than 50, so it's less than a half, but it's only 6 units away from 50, so that means it's closest because it's 44 units away from 0, 56 units away from 1, but only 6 units away from 0.50, so closest to a half again. And last but not least, use the difference to answer the following. So we have same thing, but now you need to be careful and look at who does that. Doesn't put a 0 here, but puts a 0 there. Oh my goodness. So 0.92. And remember, we have to line up the decimal places. So this is 0.5. So to make the same number of places, I got to add a 0 there. Because you can't have one with 2 and one with 1. You need them both to have the same number of places when you're adding and subtracting. So 0.92 minus 0.50, so they both have 2 places. 2 minus 0 is 2. 9 minus 5 is 4. Not another in the 40s. Are you kidding me? Wow. So once again, 42 is less than a half because a half is 50, and it's closest to a half because it's only 8 units from 50. So those were kind of uneventful, like almost the same answer on every problem. Okay, but you get good practice on the next one because we're going to do a whole bunch of adding and subtracting. So how about we do 2 together, then you do 2, and then we do 2, and then you do 2, and we'll just work our way down the sheet. So these are going to be a little bit more complicated, a little more borrowing. Good practice though for not using a calculator. So we have 79.8, but this has 3 decimal places, so we want to make sure that one has 3 decimal places as well. So 79.800, and remember, you can add as many zeros after a decimal and it does not change the value of the number. Minus 52.779. So like I said, buckle up. There's a lot of borrowing on these. So make this 10, borrow from this 10, make it 9. Then we got to go up here and borrow from this because we can't borrow from 0. So now we have a 10, a 9, and a 7 up there. So 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 7 is 2. 7 minus 7 is 0. 9 minus 2 is 7. 7 minus 5 is 2. So like I said, a little bit more complicated. So make this 10, borrow 1 from here. This 10, make it a 9. Borrow 1 from here, make it a 7. And let's do one more, and then you guys can take a crack at a couple. So, does everybody know where a number's decimal place is if there isn't one in the number? So when you say you're 23 years old, do you know the decimals after the 3? Yeah. So likewise here, this has 1 decimal place, so I need to make 1 decimal place on 73. So 73.0. So every whole number has an imaginary decimal at its end. And then 39.5, making sure to line up the decimals carefully. Just a regular addition problem. 0 plus 5 is 5. Decimal straight down. 9 and 3 is 12. Carry our 1. 10 plus 1 is 11. And there we have it. Okay, next 2 are yours. So go ahead and shut off your video, work those 2 out, and then come back and we will check them. Okay, so we have 21.30 because they both need to have 2 decimal places minus 20.72. So 21.30 minus 20.72. Now they both have 2 decimal places. So 10, 13, make it a 12. Because we have to borrow again. 1, make it a 0. 10 minus 2 is 8. 12 minus 7 is 5. Decimal straight down. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 2 is 0. So we don't need to put 2 zeros in there. So the answer is 58 hundredths. Hope everybody did okay on that one. So here's another one where the decimal is not there, so I immediately put it in and see that I need to add 1 decimal place. So 46.0 plus 29.5. 5 decimal straight down, 15, carrier 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 75.5 or 75 and 5/10 would be how that would be written, or how that would be read. 75 and can only be used when there's a decimal place. So 75 and 5/10. Okay, next two, it looks like we have another subtraction problem, and 87 doesn't have a decimal, and it's going to need 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 87.00 minus 68.03. So 10, make it a 9, so we have to borrow 1. 17, make it a 16. 8, make it a 7. So we had to go all the way down the line before we could finally borrow 1. And that's going to be 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 0 is 9. 16 minus 8 is 8. 7 minus 6 is 1. So that would be 68, 78, 88. Minus 187. Yep, that looks good. And so I want you to see what I was just doing in my head. Subtraction, we learned this back in Module 1, is checked with addition. So if you're kind of sketchy on your subtraction, which some of us are with the borrowing, all you have to do is add these two and they should give you that number back. So that's kind of nice to know when you get a really ugly one like that. So that's what I just did in my head, but I'll show you. So take these two, when you add them you should get that. So 10, carrier 1, 9 plus 1 is 10, carrier 1, bring down the decimal, 16 plus 1 is 17. Okay, did I do that right? 16 plus 1, 17, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So 10, carrier 1, 9, 10, carrier 1, 16 plus 1, 17, carrier 1, yep, 6, 7, 8. And look at that. Ding, 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 ding. We've just verified that this is the correct answer because subtraction is checked by adding. Adding is checked by subtraction. Division is checked with multiplication. Multiplication is checked with division. Okay, one more for us, and then you guys get a couple to try. So I see I need 1 decimal place, so I put that after the decimal in 95, and I'm going to add that to 65.8. So 8, bring down your decimal, 10, carry your 1, 9, 10, 16. So 8 plus 0 is 8, decimal straight down, 5 plus 5 is 10, carrier 1, 9, 10, 16. So that would officially be read as 160 and 8/10. just like the one previous to it would be read as 18 and 97 hundredths, 58 hundredths, 75 and 5 tenths, 27 and 21, there's 3 decimal places, so thousandths, 112 and 5 tenths. Okay, next 2 are yours, so go ahead and shut off the video. It looks like this one you're going to have to add 3 zeros. This one you're going to have to add a 0. Go ahead and do those. You can just finish the last 4 if you want. So just go ahead and finish those and then come back and we will check the last 4 together. Okay, so this first one needs 3 decimal places added, so that would be 18.000 minus 3.194. So another one with a whole ton of borrowing. So 10, make it a 9, 10, make it a 9, 8, make it a 7. So finally we were able to borrow one all the way up in front. So 10 minus 4 is 6, 9 minus 9 is 0, 9 minus 1 is 8, 7 minus 3 is 4, so 14.806, which would be read as 14 and 806 thousandths. 3 decimal places, thousandths. Okay, this one just needs 1 decimal place, so 15's decimals at the end, so 15.0 minus 2.1, 10, 5, make it a 4, borrow 1 to make that 10, so 10 minus 1 is 9, decimal straight down, 4 minus 2 is 2, and 1. 12.9, 13.9, 14.9, 15. I just checked it in my head. So that would be read 12 and 9 tenths. Okay, so this one looks like it needs 2 decimal places added. So 102.00 plus 7.75. So 0 plus 5 is 5. 0 plus 7 is 7. Decimal straight down, 901. So that would be read 109 and 75 100ths. And last one on this page, this one needs 3 decimal places, so take 76, who has its decimal at the end, add 3 decimal places, 57.537. So 735.6 plus 7 is 13, carrier 1, 12 plus 1 is 13. So that would be read 133 and 537 thousandths. Okay, last page. Hope you guys did good on those. So this is just some word problems, and there are several word problems. Let me just check and make sure I haven't missed anything. Now I'm going to be the super paranoid teacher. Yep, okay. So we're officially on our last page. No pages missing. The next packet is like 26 pages long. I'm really going to have to be careful with that one. But no, there are a lot of word problems like this that have you practicing addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. When you do your practice test that's listed after the last lesson, and lesson 4 is the last lesson, you'll get to see the kinds of problems that'll be on your test. Great way to prepare for your test, doing the practice test and then checking it with the answer key I have posted on Canvas. So Tom bought 7.3 pounds of watermelon and grape jelly beans. 1.4 pounds were watermelon flavor. How many pounds were grape? So this is the watermelon and grape. So if we know how much watermelon there were, does everybody agree we're going to have to subtract on this one to find out how many grape there were? So this is watermelon and grape. So to find the grape, we have to subtract the total by the watermelon. So this would be 7.35 minus 1.45. 5 minus 5 is 0. 13, 7 make it a 6. So 13 minus 4 is 9. Bring the decimal place down. 6 minus 1 is 5. And you should always label your answers, because most of your teachers in your higher level classes are going to ask you to write a full sentence about what you found. So the best way to do that is by labeling your answer. So this would be, how many pounds were grape flavored? 5.90 pounds of grape flavor. There we go. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll let you guys practice. So Jane was buying food for her swim party. She bought 36 42 ounce bag of barbecue chips, 67 99 ounce bag of regular chips. How many chips did she buy all together? So that right there is a key word. What is the total? How much did she buy all together? That's the key word for addition. So we have 36.42 plus 67.99. And were there only two kinds? Yep. And so we get 11, carry our 1, 9 and 10, plus 4 is 14. Carry our 1, bring our decimal straight down. 13 plus 1 is 14. Carry our 1, 9 plus 1 is 10. So 104.41, and then we got to label our answer, ounce or ounces, all together. Okay, so you guys ready? Go ahead and try number 13. Shut off your video and then come back and we'll check it together. Okay, so Jim and Susan were running a relay race together, so it's one of those tag team things. So this is how long the race was, because they gave you the total, so you know that's the total altogether. Jim ran 11.71 or 11 71/100 kilometers. How far did Sue run? Well, if we know this is the total, that means we have to subtract how far Jim ran to find out how far Sue ran. So this would be 24.07 minus 11.71. 7 minus 1 is 6. Have to borrow here, make that 10, and borrow 1 from the 4 to make it 3. 10 minus 7 is 3. Decimal straight down. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. Then I look to see what my label is. That's kilometers. So 12.36 or 12 36 kilometers for Sue. Okay, let's do one more together and then you guys try the last one of the section. Phoenix and Tucson each had a rainstorm. If Phoenix received 1.39 inches and Tucson received 3.17 inches, how many did they get in total? Keyword meaning plus. Total always means plus. When they give you the total, you can be pretty sure it's going to be a subtraction problem. But when they ask you for the total, that means you need to add the two parts that you have. So 1.39 plus 3.17, 16, carrier 1, 3, 4, 5, straight down, 4.56 inches total. Okay, last one's for you. So go ahead and turn off the video and come back when you're done and we'll check that answer. Okay, Jill received 7.4 kilograms. Her sister received 6.11 kilograms. Jill then ate 2.1 kilograms of her candy. How much candy was left? So does everybody understand that this is a two-part question? So first we have to subtract these because this is how much Jill got and she ate this much. So to figure out how much was left, we have to figure how much Jill has left and then add it to her sister's candy. Or you could add these two and subtract the 2.1 from that. It really doesn't matter. But let's do it the way that makes sense. So it's going to be 7.4 minus 2.11. That's going to be Jill's candy. So 7.4, she ate 2.11. So we need two decimal places on this since this has two. So 7.40 minus 2.11. 10, 4, make it a 3 because we need to borrow. 10 minus 1 is 9. 3 minus 1 is 2. So Jill has 5.29 kilograms left. But they want to know total, so then we take Jill's 5.29 and add it to her sister's 6.11. 10, carrier 1, 2, 3, 4, decimal straight down, 11. So 11.40 kilograms left between the two sisters. So first figure out how much Jill has left and then add it to her sisters, and that's how much they have left altogether. Okay, so that's the end of Module 2, Lesson 3. So I'll see you back on Lesson 4. Bye.